Good morning, dear students, and welcome to yet another lecture of your preparatory series for CLAT examination. In today's lecture, we will discuss tenses and specifically present tense. We'll delve deep into some of the basic concepts and some common mistakes, followed by some practice questions. I'm your teacher, Ravi Bhatt. So let's first look at the course outline. First, we'll discuss the basics of tenses like what, why, definition, importance, types, and the wrong usage, followed by a thorough discussion on present tense in English. After that, we'll discuss about variations in present tense, that is simple present, present continuous, present perfect, and present perfect continuous. After that, types of sentences, that is declarative, interrogative, imperative, exclamatory, affirmative, and negative, followed by some of the examples. And then common mistakes in the use of present tense, followed by practice questions. And finally, some tips and techniques to master English tenses. So let's begin. First, what are tenses? The word tense is used to denote a characteristic of the verb in a sentence. The tense of a verb is used to depict the time in which a specific event is taking place. In other words, we can say a tense is a form of verb that allows you to express time. The tense of the verb tells us when an event or something existed or when a person did something. Now, there are three main types of tenses, as we all know: past, present, and future. Let's look at some of the definitions of tenses. Now, Oxford Learner's Dictionary defines tense as any of the forms of a verb that may be used to show the time of the action or state expressed by the verb. Whereas Merriam-Webster tells a distinction of a form in a verb to express distinctions of time or duration of the action or state it denotes. Okay. Whereas Collins describe it as a tense of a verb group is its form, which usually shows whether you are referring to the past, present, or future. And Cambridge defines it as any of the forms of a verb which show the time at which an action happened. Okay, so primarily at the very core of it, tense is something that tells us the time of the action or the state expressed by the verb. Okay, now why are tenses important? Now let's discuss why tenses are important and why we are discussing it here in this lecture. Tenses are often considered to be the backbone and the most fundamental element of the English language. Without tense, everything seems to be absurd. Tenses helps you describe actions that take place at different times. It helps to give clarity to your context and the information you're trying to convey. It also allows you to build complex sentence structures. So if you want to be able to convey information clearly and promptly, you should know all the tenses and all the 12 variation of tenses and how they are used. So primarily we have 3 tenses and 4 variations each. So that makes it a total of 12 tenses in English. And tenses would be extremely important if you want to speak clear language without any ambiguity in terms of time. Now, the different tenses in English, the different tense forms in English. Now we have, as you all know, 3 basic tense forms: present, past, and future. And there are 4 different variations of these tense forms, that is simple tense, continuous tense, perfect tense, and perfect continuous tense. Now if we look at those 4 variations in present tense, it would be simple present, present continuous, present perfect, and present perfect continuous. Then it is in past, it is simple past, past continuous, past perfect, and past perfect continuous. For future, it would be simple future, future continuous, future perfect, and future perfect continuous. So that makes all the 4 combinations. Now, let's discuss some of the wrong uses, some of the examples, so that you can understand why having a good command over tenses becomes extremely important for gaining clarity and command over the language. Now, for example, in a hypothetical scenario, you are at a restaurant. Now, so the wrong sentence will be, I will eat the entire pizza already. Whereas the correct form would be, I have already eaten the entire pizza. or I ate the entire pizza already. So the error is that the wrong sentence, it combines future and past tenses, suggesting that a person is predicting something that has already happened. Okay, and in a real life scenario, for example, the server, the waiter asks that, would you like to place an order? And the customer responds with a wrong sentence. Now that would create confusion about whether they've eaten or they're planning to eat. So that is one scenario. Okay. Say another scenario is of a job interview. So uh, the interview asks you a question, and you replied by saying, I'm worked here for 5 years. Okay. Whereas the correct version would be, I worked here for 5 years. Okay. Now the error here is that you've mixed present continuous with past tense. Okay. And we've created a kind of time paradox. That's wrong. The interviewer who is interviewing you might be puzzled, wondering if the person currently works there or used to work there. Okay, so that would be a kind of jumble up. All right. Again, the third would be, for example, you're hearing a weather report, and while listening to the weather report, someone says that it is rained tomorrow. Okay, so it is rained tomorrow. Again, it would be, you're mixing present continuous with past tense while referring to the future. So again, it will be a jumbled up sentence. The real life scenario would be, people would wonder if the forecaster has a time machine or it is just very confused. All right, correct would be, it will rain tomorrow. Now, fourth, maybe say you are at the gym. Okay, so here you said, I am running yesterday and will be very tired now. Okay, so again, what you've done, you've reversed the natural progression of time. All right, so the correct would be, I went running yesterday and I'm very tired now. All right, now all these scenarios, we'll discuss a couple of scenarios more, are classic examples of what happens when we use tenses wrongly. Okay, but the second last one, greeting a friend, I will see you yesterday, how was it? Okay, now again, now this creates an absurd situation. This creates, a situation that, I mean, you knew nothing about, but you said, that I will see you yesterday. You've mixed up things. All right, so the correct would be, I saw you yesterday, how was it? Or I'll see you tomorrow, how is everything? Something like that. Okay, which would be grammatically perfect for some other person to understand. And the final one, say you're in a classroom. uh, so here you're saying that, by next week I am submitting my assignment, my homework 3 days ago. Now that's again a blunder. Okay, so what you've done, you've created a paradoxical time loop about homework submission. Doesn't work like this. All right, so teacher would be thoroughly confused about when to expect the assignment. So the correct one would be that I submitted my homework 3 days ago, or an independent sentence that says by next week I will have submitted my homework. That's what gives clarity in meaning. So sentences would, so the tenses, okay, I beg your pardon, tenses would always give clarity of meaning to your sentences. They will always tell specifically that when are you referring to, which time period are you referring to? Are you referring to past? Are you referring to present? Or are you referring to something that's going to happen in the future? So that's why tenses are important. And today, primarily in our lecture, we are going to discuss uh, the use of tenses and their present tense specifically. Okay, now let's come to present tense. Now present tense, the simple present tense or present tense, is one of the most basic tenses in English. Okay, we use present tense to talk about something that is currently going on, something that is habitually performed, or a state that generally or currently exists. Now here I want you all to focus for general truths, for something that habitually happens, that happens out of a schedule, or something that is fixed to happen. Okay, for all those things, we in general use what? We use present tense in English. Now, okay, for example, here's the definition of present tense with some of the examples. The present tense refers to the action or event that takes place or is taking place in the present. It represents the current activity or the present state of being of the subject in the given context. It is used to describe habits, unchanging situations, general truths, or fixed arrangements. Now, I want you all to focus on the last sentence. Okay. So, last sentence says it is used to describe habits, something that you're habitual of, unchanging situations, okay, something that is fixed, that will always happen in the same manner, general truths that are universally acceptable, and fixed arrangement, an arrangement which is scheduled and which will happen in the given time. For all these things, we always use simple present tense. Okay. For example, uh, Theo sings wonderfully, or Marley and Noah are on the way to the park, or say your exam starts at 9. London is a big city. Now, many of you might ask that your exam will start at 9. So that too would be grammatically correct. But generally, what I said, fixed arrangements, unchanging situations, these all are also conveyed in present tense. So your exam starts at 9 is as much correct as say your exam will be scheduled at 9 or your exam will begin at 9. Well, that's a different ways of putting it across. Now, talking about simple present tense, the basic variation. Now what we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss all the four variations of present tense, right? Now, simple present tense. Now, what is the structural formula? That is subject plus verb in the base form or third person plural form plus rest of the sentence. Primarily it's subject. Okay. Examples: I go to school every day and he plays cricket. Now that's the basic structural formula of simple present tense. Now, during this course, we'll see how this arrangement can be put into various sentence type. Now, you all know that we have certain types of sentences in English. So, I'm going to give you some real life scenarios on how this basic sentence type can be a part of various real life scenarios and various types of sentences that we speak in English. For example, you must very well know that there are these types of sentences in English, and the division on the basis of function or purpose would be declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory, and on whether they state something that is true or not true, we have an affirmative sentence and a negative sentence. Now, very quickly, what's a declarative sentence? Now, declarative sentence is something that states a fact, opinion, or an idea. Okay. For example, I say the ocean is looking blue, or the ocean is blue. Or, for example, when it comes to interrogative sentence, it asks a question. Okay. Like the word interrogative, interrogation. So, the interrogative sentences are sentences that asks a question. For example, is the ocean blue? All right. And then we have imperative sentences. Okay. Now, imperative sentences generally give a command or they make a request. For example, they say, shut the door. Okay. Followed by a period. Or they say, stop that. Then followed by an exclamation. So these are imperative sentences. They either give commands or they make requests. And the fourth is exclamatory sentence. Now, exclamatory, just like, we have this punctuation mark known as exclamation mark. Exclamatory sentences expresses strong emotions, okay, some kind of excitement, surprise, or any other strong feeling. So what are these sentences? Exclamatory sentences. Okay. Example: hey, wow, that's amazing. So these are exclamatory sentences, and on the basis of whether a sentence states something true or not, we have again various two types of sentences. First is affirmative sentence. Now, affirmative sentences assert something that is true. Okay. Now, an affirmative sentence generally makes a positive statement, agreeing with or asserting the truth of something. It would never contain any negative word like, say, no, not, never. Okay. Whereas a negative statement denies or contradicts a statement. Okay. That's what inherently makes it a negative statement, indicating something is not true or not happening. All right. Now, it would typically include words like no, not, never, or other kind of negative terms. All right. So, these are two types of sentence formations. Now, what we are going to do during the course of the lecture, we are going to fit in those tense variations into different kind of these sentences, so that you know that when in general language, or when reading a paragraph or doing your CLAT examination, when you come across, then you must understand technically that what kind of sentence is this. Okay, while it might not help you directly, indirectly it will be a great help. Okay, so for every kind of sentence, we'll look at 3 to 4 examples, and we hope that would help to enhance your general understanding about tenses. And in this lecture, we are specifically talking about present tense and its 4 variations. All right, now by function, okay, or purpose, declarative. The train arrives at 7 a.m. She sings beautifully. I drink tea every morning. They study in the library after class. All of them simple present. They're kind of declarative sentences. All right. Now, interrogative sentences, you're asking a question. Do you speak English? Or do you speak Spanish? Or do you speak Odia? Do you speak Bengali? Like this. Does your brother play the guitar? Okay. Or what time does the shop open? Or what time does the shop close? And do birds fly south in the winter? Okay. These all are interrogative questions. Okay. Imperative questions, like I said, they either give a command or they make a request. Take your seat, please. Don't make noise in the classroom. Close the gate behind you or close the door behind you. Always tell the truth. All right. Fourth, exclamatory. Now, hey, what a lovely smile she has. All right. Exclamatory sentences would generally, in most of the cases, would end with an exclamation mark. Okay, where we are expressing some kind of feeling, some emotions. So, how sweet this mango tastes. All right. Now, when you say how sweet this mango tastes, it's not a interrogative question because it's not asking a question. Okay. Now, this reminds me of one of the figures of speech that you can study on your own, which is known as rhetorical question. So, what is rhetorical question? Rhetorical question is a statement that is made to make a point rather than to fetch an answer. Okay, rhetorical question, it's a very common figure of speech, okay, which we teach to the students. So while this is not a part of the curriculum that we are covering right now, but you can certainly learn and try to understand what it is. It's a rhetorical question. So now this, how sweet this mango tastes, this is not an interrogative sentence, rather it is an exclamatory sentence. Okay, this is where your understanding must come. Okay. However, had I said, how sweet is this mango, followed by a question mark, that would make it an interrogative sentence. However, when I say, how sweet this mango tastes, followed by an exclamation mark, it would be an exclamatory sentence. Okay. What a mess you make. Okay. And how brightly the sun shines today. Okay. So, all these things, though they are starting with WH or they are starting with how, they are not interrogative sentences, they are all exclamatory sentences. Now, the next one, on the basis of whether they state something that is true or not, we have affirmative sentences and we have negative sentences. So, here are 4 examples of affirmative sentences in simple present. He eats breakfast at 8 a.m. They play cricket every weekend. She writes in her journal daily. And we go to the market on Fridays. All right. And again, negative, which will always negate something. He does not eat meat. They do not watch TV in the morning, or she does not like cold weather, or say, I do not drink coffee. Now, these are all negative statements. All right. Now, moving on, the next sentence variation, okay, after simple present is present continuous tense. Now, what is present continuous tense? When we speak something which is presently happening, which is currently happening, which is currently in process. So the structural formula is subject plus helping verb, or we also call it auxiliary verb, is MR plus main verb in ing form plus rest of the sentence. All right. Now the examples are, for example, Tarun is watching a movie. So he's currently watching a movie. He did not completely watched it. He's in the process of watching a movie. Or they are planning a birthday party for their friend. So they are currently planning a birthday party for their friend. They have not completely planned it, or they've not completed their planning, but they are in process. All right. So they are planning a birthday party for their friend. Now, we all have discussed the types of sentences. Now let's very quickly look at the examples of each of these sentence variation. Now, first, declarative. She's reading a novel, or she's reading a novel right now. They're playing football in the park. So it signifies an action that is going on right in front of my eyes, right before my eyes. Okay. I'm writing an email, or he's watching a documentary. Okay. Now, a small uh, pro tip for you. I've said they're playing football in the park. Okay. Now, I said this action is happening right before my eyes. So, should I say right before my eyes or right in front of my eyes? What is the difference? You can pause this video for a while and you can think of what exactly could be the difference. When I say before and when I say in front of. The difference is that you say before, whenever you say before my eyes, you are always referring to any animate thing. Okay. For example, I'm standing before all of you. So here, all of you are animate objects. Standing before the teacher, standing before the professor, standing before my father. So this is before. Whereas when I say in front of, I'm referring to any inanimate object. For example, I say I'm standing in front of uh, the Red Fort. I'm standing in front of the PTC ground. I'm standing in front of the Great Wall of China. Say anything. Okay. So when you say in front of, you refer to an inanimate object. You stand in front of a car. Don't stand in front of the car. Okay. So that's the basic difference. These are general things that we must know. So having said that, let's come back to what we were discussing. So by function or purpose, okay, they are the four uh, categorizations. Now, interrogative sentences. Now, again, like I said, interrogative sentences asks a question. So, are you studying for the test? Is she coming to the party tonight? What are they doing over there? Are we meeting at the cafe? Okay. So, we are asking a question. Okay. And in which tense we are asking a question? It's in present continuous tense. Okay. Imperative, generally imperative sentences, they don't really take continuous tenses, because in imperative, what we are doing, we are either giving a command or making a request. Okay. However, there are some of the adopted forms in spoken English, basically for emphasis or something which you might read. But in general, imperative sentences are not there in continuous tense. So stop talking, you are being rude. Okay. So stop talking, we've just added. All right. Keep moving, we are getting late. Don't interrupt while I'm speaking. Look, she's crossing the street. Okay. So though they are not completely imperative sentences, but we've made it an adapted form so that you can understand the meaning. Because in general, imperative sentences, they either give command or they make request. All right. Moving ahead, by function or purpose, exclamatory sentence. What a beautiful song she's singing! An exclamation mark. Okay, you're praising someone's song. How fast they are running. You're looking at a race. Okay, and the sprinters, they're running very fast. So you said, hey, how fast they're running. Exclamatory mark. Okay, so that's an exclamation. That's an exclamatory sentence. Look at the dog. It's chasing its tail. Again, an exclamatory sentence. Wow, kids are having so much fun. Again, an exclamatory sentence. Now, all these are in present continuous tense. Moving on. Again, the remaining two categorizations, affirmative and negative. There are four affirmative sentences, all in continuous tense. In all these sentences, you must observe one thing, that an action is going on right now. Okay, they all signify an action that is going on presently. For example, I'm learning Spanish these days, or she's baking a chocolate cake. All right, they're building a new house, we are planning a trip. So an action is going on. In the very same way, when we talk about the negative formations, okay, it's always, has words like no, not, never. I'm not feeling well today. He's not attending the meeting. they're not listening to the instructions, and we are not going out tonight. All these are negative sentences. All right. Now let's move on to the next tense type, that is present perfect tense. Okay. Now that present perfect tells present perfect tense tells us about an action that has just been completed. Okay. The structural formula is subject plus helping verb have has plus past participle of the main verb. Okay. Plus rest of the sentence along with the time frame. Okay. So what is that? That is present perfect tense. Examples: Vinu has left the hall, or I have reached the home. Okay, let's see some of the examples. Now, this slide is repetitive throughout the lecture so that every time we discuss, you have an idea of what sentence formations are we going to discuss. Now, first declarative. Okay, now she has finished her homework. Okay, now always remember that in present perfect, we refer to the actions that have recently been completed. Now, had we been talking about actions that were completed sometime in the past, then, and we did not know when in the past, then it would be a simple past tense. Okay, then it would not be present perfect tense. Later on in the module, we'll discuss the difference between simple past and present perfect. But always remember that present perfect tells us about the actions that have just been completed, whereas when we refer to the actions that had happened in the past and not knowing when they complete, then when those actions were completed, we would use simple past. That's categorically the difference. Now, declarative sentences: she has finished her homework, they have traveled to Italy twice, I've watched this movie before, he has written 3 novels. Okay. Now, next is interrogative: have you seen my phone? Or has she arrived at the station? What have they done to the kitchen? Or have we missed the train? That is interrogative form. Imperatives, again, imperatives generally don't take present perfect, but conversational expressions, okay, are possible. So not exactly the exact example, but just conversational expressions like just look what you've done, or tell me if you finished your work, don't act like you've never been here, or say be honest if you've made a mistake. All right, these are imperatives. Then exclamatory sentences, for example, what a mess you've made. All right, how beautifully she has sung, or wow, you've done it again, or say, oh no, he has broken the vase. Now, you see the first sentence, what a mess you have made. So, here, though I've written what a mess you've made, it's not an interrogative sentence. Okay, by the structure of it, we can very well say that a person is annoyed, okay, by something, or maybe by the mess or by the disorderly things that they can see right now. So they are saying what a mess you have made, and they're certainly not asking a question, rather they are making a point. And since this is followed by an exclamation mark, this tells us decisively that it is an exclamatory sentence. Now, the last two categorizations, affirmative and negative. So, I have completed the project. She has learned to play the piano. We have booked our tickets and they have joined the club. Affirmative sentences. Negative sentences: I have not seen that movie. He has not replied to my email. They have not visited us this year. And we have not decided yet. Okay, they are negatives. Now, let's move on to the last variations, that is present perfect continuous. Okay. Now, present perfect continuous, basically what does this tell us? Now, this tells us about an action that had started in the past and that is still going on while I'm speaking to you. Okay. Now, the structural formula is subject plus have has plus been plus verb ing form plus rest of the sentence. Okay. Now, the examples are: first, they've been waiting for you for a long time. That means they have been waiting for you, say, from one point in time in the past, and they are still waiting for you. So, an action, like I said, that had started in the past, okay, and that is still going on. Archana has been checking her phone every now and then. Okay. So this is present perfect continuous tense. Okay. Now let's see some of the sentences from this particular formation. She has been studying all morning, or I've been working on this project for hours. Okay. Now always remember that, guys, there's a small difference that these sentence, they would always denote some kind of time variations will be there. So since time variations will be there, we must not forget that there are two uh, like adverbs you might have already heard: for and since. Now, when do we use for to denote time and when do we use since to denote time? Always remember that for is always and always used for period of time, whereas since is always used to denote point of time. Okay. For example, when I say uh, they've been waiting for me, or they've been waiting for this news for 8 years. So I've used for here because it's a duration for 8 years, for 8 days, for 80 hours. So that this is where we use for. However, when I use since, I would specifically talk about any period of time, any point in time. Okay. Now, point in time basically means been waiting on the, or they've been working on this project since 2013. Now, when I'm specifically talking about a point in time, okay. For example, they've been studying since 8 a.m. in the morning. All right, I'm referring to a specific point of time. Okay, so since 8 a.m. or say since 2013. Okay, since Monday, since Wednesday. All right. So when I'm referring to things like this, I will always be using since. However, when I'm talking about a span of time, as in a period of time, I would always use for. I've been working on this project for hours. Okay. They've been living in Delhi since 2020. Okay. You can see the difference between since and for in the last three sentences that are there in your slide. I've been working on this project for hours. They've been living in Delhi since 2020, and he has been waiting for the bus for 30 minutes. All right. Now, next is interrogative sentences. Have you been sleeping well lately? Or what have they been doing all the day? Or has he been feeling better? Or how long have you been learning French? Again, now this is an interrogative question. Now, when we say how long have you been learning French, now what we signify that you've started learning French sometime in the past and that you're still learning French. Okay, so I am in a way inquiring that how long. So I'm asking them about a period of time. Okay, because I know that you've started learning French sometimes in the past and that you're still learning French. You've not ended learning French, you've not learned French completely. So since you're regularly learning French, so I'm asking you a question that how long have you been learning French? Okay, so your answer could be uh, say for 8 months, for 1 year, for 3 years, for 5 years. Okay, so that's the thing. Now, by function or purpose, again, imperatives don't usually use this tense, but for the sake of example, I've made some of the conversational or expressive forms. Admit it, you've been lying to me. Okay, or present, I can just change the sentence to say, admit it, you've been lying to me all this while, or you've been lying to me since Monday. All right. Now, don't pretend you haven't been listening, or tell me you've been planning this, or just stop, you've been complaining all day. So that is all what these all are imperative sentences. Though generally imperative sentences don't take this form, but that's just only to explain. Now, exclamatory sentence, what a lot you've been doing lately, or how hard she has been working. Okay, and wow, you've been running for miles. Or say, what a storm it has been raining through. All right, so all these are exclamatory sentences. Now, coming on to the last two categorizations of affirmative sentences and negative sentences. So let's see first affirmative basic sentences. I've been reading a fascinating book, or she has been practicing the violin every day, or we've been preparing for the competition and they have been waiting patiently. Whereas when it comes to negative sentence, I've not been feeling well, he has not been answering his phone, they have not been following the rules, or we have not been receiving any updates. Moving ahead, now let's talk about some of the common mistakes with present tense. Now, the first mistake, subject verb agreement. You know that as per subject verb agreement, the verb of the sentence must always conform to the nature of the subject. So, like I said, one of the most frequent errors involves subject verb agreement. In English, the verb form must agree with the subject in number and person. Okay. Now, when I say the correct sentence as, sorry, the incorrect sentence as, she walked to school every day. Now, when I know that the subject is third person singular noun, that is he, she, it, the verb will always have s or es going by the formula, the structural formula of simple present tense. Okay, so it would never be she walked to school every day, it would always be she walks to school every day. That would be correct, grammatically correct sentence. So the first is always make verb agree to the subject. This is known as subject verb agreement. Now, here, incorrect use of auxiliary verbs, helping verbs or auxiliary verbs as we call them are extremely important. Now, let's see what work auxiliary verbs do. Now, the simple present tense does not require auxiliary verbs like do, does in positive sentences. Okay. However, they are necessary in negative sentences or questions. Okay. However, at times to create an emphasis, we do use auxiliary verbs, okay, to make it more emphatic. But in general, the positive sentences would not require auxiliary verbs. For example, if I say, he likes chocolates, okay, and a negative sentence would be, he does not like chocolate. All right. Or interrogative question would be, okay, an interrogative sentence would be like a question, does he like chocolate? Okay. So here you must understand that the common mistake, it includes adding do, does in positive sentences or forgetting do, does in questions or negatives. Okay, especially in these days when we use a lot of social media, the tone is conversational, rhetorical. We do forget using, these basic grammatical structures. Okay, and always remember that we use do for I, you, we, and they. Okay, always. And we use the does for he, she, it in questions and negatives. All right, so always remember that the use of do, does. Okay, do is always for I, you, we, they, and does is always for he, she, it. All right, and in simple present tense we do not use auxiliary verbs in positive formations. All right, now moving on. Another misuse is the misuse of time expressions. Okay, these all are small mistakes that actually creates a bigger impact. Now, the time expressions, for example, the time expressions like every day, often, sometimes, and never are commonly used with simple present tense. Okay, a mistake learners often make is placing these expressions correctly in a sentence. Okay, now where do you put in these words? Okay, so incorrect would be, I visit often my grandparents. Okay, or say, I visit my grandparents often. Okay, this would also not be correct. The correct variation would be I often visit my grandparents. Okay, always remember that in general, time expressions comes before the main verb. Okay, however, they even come at the end of the sentence, but more grammatically acceptable form would be that this time expression would often come before the main verb, and you would never ever use them between the subject and the verb. Okay, like I like saying that I visit often my grandparents. Okay, now, the other person might understand what you say, but it would be grammatically correct, incorrect. Now, overuse of simple present. Now, another common mistake is using the simple present tense inappropriately, especially when the action is not habitual or a general truth. Okay. Now, like I told you, we use simple present tense when we are talking about something which is habitual or which is a general truth. Okay. However, often we tend to use it incorrectly. For example, when you say I go to the cinema, you refer to an action that is habitual, so that is acceptable. However, when you say I go to the cinema last night, okay, now it was a past event that you're describing. Okay, so for that, you will be using simple past tense. Okay, I went to the cinema last night. Simple past tense would be more acceptable over there. Okay, in fact, simple past tense is the tense that you'll be using there rather than saying that I go to the cinema last night. This is not how it would be, and that would be grammatically incorrect. So, the incorrect formation would be I go to the cinema last night, whereas correct would be I went to the cinema last night, or say correct could be I go to the cinema. All right, so this overuse of simple present must be avoided. Now, again, confusion with continuous tenses. Now, beginners often confuse the simple present with the simple present continuous tense, leading to incorrect sentences. Okay, for example, the incorrect would be she is reading books every day. Now, always remember that while we were discussing present continuous tense, I said that we use present continuous tense to describe actions which is happening right now. I mean, the moment when I'm speaking. So, we use present continuous tense only and only for actions that are happening at the moment of speaking. Okay. Whereas for habitual actions, for something which I would often do, I'll always use simple present tense. Okay. For routines, for habits, for something that is fixed, for something that is universal. Okay. Like we have discussed before. So, this sentence formation that she is reading books every day would be grammatically wrong. Grammatically correct sentence formation would be she reads books every day. Okay. Now, moving on, forgetting the S in third person singular noun. Now, that is something that is extremely important for all of you to remember. And this will come with a bit of practice, with a bit of observant reading. Now, this is a very common mistake among learners. When the subject is third person singular, the verb usually takes an S or ES. All right. Now, for example, the correct would be the cat chases the mouse, not that the cat chased the mouse. Okay. And always remember to add S or ES to the verb when the subject is he, she, it, or any singular noun. Okay. Now, again, that is something very important, which again would is something that people would often forget. Okay. Or people would often not notice. But this is something which is extremely important, that you would always have to put S, okay, ES, okay, at the end of the verb. All right. Now, these are some of the very common mistakes that we often see in the use of present tense. One more mistake, incorrect negative form. Okay, like we have a couple of more things to discuss. Now, incorrect negative form. Now, incorrect negative form, that is, creative negative sentences in the simple present tense requires the use of do not or does not, as the case may be. Okay. Now, common mistake is omitting do or does in negatives. Okay. For example, she not like coffee. So the person might understand what you're trying to say, but that is not grammatically correct. It would be, she does not like coffee. Okay, she does not like coffee. Okay, and always remember that, like we've discussed, third person singular subjects, it will always be does not. With others, it will be do not. Okay, so whenever you see a third person singular subject, it will always be does not. And whenever we create an incorrect, like whenever we create a negative form, it will always be do, does, followed by not. Okay, that's the rule. So this is again a very common mistake that is often committed by the students. Now, one more mistake would be misplacing adverbs of frequency. Okay. Now, the question here is that these adverbs are very often used in sentences, but where do we place them? Okay. So, incorrect would be they play always football on Sunday. Okay. Or they play football on Sunday always. Both of these formations are incorrect. The correct formation is they always play football on Sundays. Okay, always remember that the adverbs of frequency are generally placed before the main verb but after the verb to be. Okay, so they always play football on Sunday. They never pray on Tuesdays. They usually come on Fridays, Saturdays, whatever, time span that is. Okay. So always remember that adverbs of frequency. All right. Now, again, there's a confusion between singular noun and plural noun. Okay. So that, you often end up jumbling the two. So when we are using plural noun, ensure that the verb form matches the plural subject. Okay. Plural noun will take plural subject, singular noun will take singular subject. For example, you cannot say that the dog barks loudly. No, the dog barks loudly or the dogs bark loudly. Okay, always remember that. Never ever confuse the noun, whether it's a plural noun or a singular noun. Okay, remember, plural subjects do not take s or es at the end of the verb. Okay, when I say the dogs, it will always be the base form of the verb. Okay, the verb as it is. However, if it is about a single dog, the subject will take s or es. Now, the next mistake that is often committed is the difference between the use of have and has. Okay, another very typical mistake which even seasoned people do. Those who have very good command over English language, even they often commit mistakes in has and have. Now, use has for third person singular and have for other subjects. Okay, so I can never say that she have a car. Okay, I'll always have to say she has a car. Okay, she has a car. So please ensure that the correct form is used based on the subject. Okay, has and have. You must know the difference, and especially when the sentence becomes complicated. At times, what happens that sentence often become complicated. So when sentences become complicated, you must very clearly understand before using has and have that what exactly is the subject. At times, the sentence, say a sentence, you've started a sentence saying the king, and then you've included a lot of qualifying sentences in between. Okay, a lot of added information is added in between, and after that, the base sentence continues. So you often tend to forget that what was my main subject. So in that case, if the main subject is king, it is singular, so accordingly verb should be used. Okay, so the sentence formations that are not quite straightforward, we often tend to commit these mistakes. Okay, and now coming on to the last one, overgeneralization irregular verbs form. Okay, now we overgeneralize irregular verb forms. For example, there are three forms of the verb. Okay, for example, for the verb go, we have go, went, gone. Okay, now a lot of verb forms would use ed, a lot of verb forms would use three different words for three different forms. Okay, and a lot of verb forms would use the same verb. Okay, as the first form, second form, and third form. So this knowledge happens to be extremely important. Okay, and we all know, like, the irregular verbs generally they don't use ed rule for the past tense. Okay, they either use the same verb or they use different words. Okay, the form of the word entirely changes. Okay, so, and there's no trick to remember this. You only have to you make yourself familiar with these common irregular patterns. Okay, that's the only way out, and this will come with consistent use. All right, so overgeneralizing irregular verb forms, so the incorrect would be she goed to the store yesterday. Okay, it will be a grammatical disaster. Okay, so the correct would be she went to the store yesterday. Okay, always remember that there are these irregular verb forms. Okay, so dear students, these are the common mistakes which we tend to often commit when we use tenses. So these are the mistakes you must be knowing yourself, or you must be saving yourself from. Now let's very quickly, towards the end of the lecture, discuss some of the lectures, the types of questions that we would often have. For example, so there is this first question for you. She dash tea every morning. Drinks, drank, is drinking, and drink. Okay, so you can pause this and you can think of an answer. Now let's discuss the correct answer. It is A, she drinks. Now this is a habitual action that we are referring to. Okay, every evening a person drinks tea. This is a habitual action, so we use the simple present tense. So the subject, she, takes the verb form. Okay, so it will be she drinks tea every morning. The next question, they dash a movie right now. Watch, are watching, watched, have watched. Okay, I'm sure most of you can guess the answer correctly. Okay, they are watching. Now, the phrase right now signals an ongoing action. Whenever it's an ongoing action while we speak, we always use present continuous. So it is MR plus ing form of the verb. Okay, so they're watching. All right, let's move on to the next one. I dash my homework. Now, please understand that whenever you find questions on tenses, though you might not find questions directly, but whenever you find questions on tenses, you must always understand the meaning of the sentence so as to supply the correct verb. Okay, the moment you miss the meaning of the sentence, okay, you will miss the mark. You will miss on how aptly you can fit in any form of the verb. Okay, for example, I dash my homework. All right, now do, have done, did, or am doing. Now, the correct answer is have done. The explanation is I have done. Okay, what we'll use? We'll use the present perfect form, and it, because what does present perfect form does? It shows a completed action with reference, with relevance to the present, with reference to the present. Had it been sometime in the past when we did not know when it happened, we would use simple past. But here, with relevance to the present, with reference to the present, we will use have done. Fourth, he dash for 2 hours. Okay, A works, B is working, C has worked, D has been working. Okay, so I don't think it will be very tough for you to understand. Okay, has been working. Okay, because at last we have this duration of time as well for 2 hours. Okay, so he has been working. Now, like I said, when do we use present perfect continuous? So the reference of present perfect continuous always comes from the past, something that has started in the past and is still continuing for 2 hours. Okay, so what do we use? We use present perfect continuous here. Okay, that is has, have, been plus ing form of the verb. Okay, so the explanation would be the action started in the past and is still continuing for 2 hours. Okay, so This there will use present perfect continuous. She has been working. Okay. And now here you can find some question like this, some questions where you might, say have a lot of questions in one single paragraph. Say every morning, Anita dash, okay, the base form is wake up at 6 a.m. and then again the base form is go for a jog in the park. Right now she dash for marathon where the base form is train. So her routine is more intense. She dash, that is again complete 3 long distance runs this week. In fact, she dash, then again the base form is practice regularly for the past 6 months to build her stamina. Okay, now uh, now we have these all blanks to fill. Now you can either pause this video and fill it by yourself, okay, and eventually I'll start discussing the answers. First, she wakes up. Okay, now we'll toggle back and forth. Okay, so Anita wakes up at 6 a.m. because we're talking about a habitual action and goes for a jog in the park. Now, this is habitual action, something that happens very often. Now, what we'll use? We'll use simple present. Okay, now she wakes up and goes to the park. Now, what we've said, I'm sorry, yeah, what we've said right now. Now, right now means an action that is happening while we speak. She is training for a marathon. Okay, that means it is the time that she is training for a marathon. So we would use is training, that is present continuous. Okay, because her routine is more intense and she's doing a work regularly. All right, and then we have present perfect. Okay, present perfect means that this week only, with reference to present, she has completed 3 long distance runs. Like we know that Anita is preparing for a marathon, so she has completed 3 long distance runs this week. In fact, okay, the last one, she has been practicing. In fact, she has been practicing regularly for the past 6 months to build her stamina. Okay, now what does this suggest? That this suggests a work that started in the past and this is still continuing. So what we know right now, that for past 6 months she has been practicing regularly for this particular event so that she can build her stamina for the marathon. So we know an action that started in the past and that is still continuing. So we would use present perfect continuous. Okay, so here is a sentence formation for you in present perfect continuous. So now these are some of the practice questions for tenses which you might very often come across. Now, very quickly, some of the tips and tricks to master English tenses. That's the last part of our lecture. Now, again, keep a clear mind, be ready to unlearn and relearn, okay, because tenses could often prove to be confusing. And since English is not our first language, we tend to make mistakes, which is absolutely all right for everyone. Understand what tenses are and how they are used. There are particular patterns in which each tense is conjugated. The whole process would become a lot easier if you try to identify the patterns and understand them. For example, the continuous tense takes a helping verb and verb in the present participle form, that is verb plus ing. Always understand what exactly does this mean, what are the patterns, what are the structural formulas, and most of the tenses would actually prove to be extremely easy for you in that case. Go through as many examples as you find, practice as much as you can, and you will know how exactly each tense works out in different contexts. And that also includes being observant while you read something. Okay, being observant while you hear what the other person is saying. There are, of course, a few exceptions. You just have to go through them keenly and apply them. It will surely take time, but you'll be able to master it with your determination and continuous efforts. Also, please remember that above all, there is one thing that you should add to your to-do list of to-do things: read books. Okay, watch movies, videos, or even series. Without even your knowledge, you'll be able to develop your vocabulary and learn so many different sentence structures that we use in various tense forms. Okay, and invariably there will be a stage where you'll be able to understand what is right and what is wrong. Okay, so that takes me to the end of today's lecture, dear students. I hope you've enjoyed today's lecture. Thank you.